Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we'll be utilizing state-of-the-art magnetic levitation technology to build a metropolitan rail system transporting workers and robots beneath the city. You'll be replacing aging Manhattan or Berlin subway systems with newer, faster, quieter technology and enhancing your rail system's abilities so that your passengers arrive at their destinations first. Maglev Metro is a pick up and deliver, tile laying, engine building game for 1 to 4 players. It takes 60 to 90 minutes to play, is for ages 14 and up, and published by Bezier Games. Now today, we're going to be doing a rule school where I'll teach you how to set up and play the game so that you don't have to read the rulebook yourself. Now I've placed timestamps below me in the description of this video just in case you want to jump to a specific section of the rules. Without further ado, let's get started. Maglev Metro is an innovative pick-up and deliver engine building, tile laying game for 1 to 4 players. You'll be utilizing state-of-the-art magnetic levitation technology to build a metropolitan rail system transporting commuters and robots beneath the city. You'll be placing tiles of your own track's color, connecting existing stations with future stations that you'll also be building. These stations are destinations that specific passengers want to be dropped off at, so you'll be picking up passengers and transporting them to their desired location. For example, the steel builder robots want to be dropped off at the factory, which also matches its color. The more robots you drop off, the more efficient engine you'll build as you choose where to place them, increasing your effectiveness of building tracks, moving your train, picking up or dropping off passengers, and more. The delivered robots not only help you build your engine, they also help you unlock the ability to build stations for commuter passengers and deliver them, like the pink professionals being delivered to the office. But watch out, because your opponents are racing to deliver them first, so efficiency is key. Dropping off the 4 commuter types is one of the main ways to gain points in the game. You'll also be trying to fulfill private goals like gaining extra points for each delivered purple artisan commuter, or building direct connections between 2 specific station types. You'll also be gaining points for each linked pair of stations with your tracks. Build the most efficient transport to be the hero of a new century. To set up, you're first going to set up all of the players. Each player is going to select a color, and first they'll take the player board of that color, in this case green. Next, each player will also take the clear track tiles and the train of their color. Now, even though these tiles are clear, there is not any film on there as they've already been taken off at the factory. Next, you're going to find the 4 different bonus card decks. If it's your first time playing, you can remove the red deck from the game. Make sure all the decks are shuffled independently, then each player will draw 1 of each of these cards. Now keep them secret from other players, but you can look at them yourself as much as you want. I'll go over how these work in more detail later. There's different types of passengers in the game. There are 3 different types of robots. We have gold organizers, we have silver builder robots, and we have copper tech robots. We also have different commuters. Now the commuters, we have pink professionals, coral diplomats, we have lilac salespeople, and purple artisans. Now you may be taking some of these out depending on the player count. Now if you're playing with 4 players, you won't remove any from the game. But if you're playing in a 3-player game, as you see here, you would take 3 of each of the colors and you'd remove them from the game. And if you're playing with 2 players, you'd remove 5 of each from the game, placing them back in the box. Now from the robots that were not removed from the game, you're going to take 1 of each type, copper, silver, and gold, and give 1 to each player, so every player has a set of the 3 different colors. Now, if you're playing with 4 players, the 4th player gets a 4th robot and they can choose which one of the 3 they want at the beginning of the game. Now, the last thing you do in player setup is you're going to assign randomly the first player token, which is this. Next, you're going to choose a map. One side of the board is Manhattan and the other side is Berlin. I'm going to go over Berlin at the end of this video. Manhattan is the best map to start with because it enables you to make quick tactical moves while monitoring the progress of your opponents and the locations of new passengers on the map. More casual players find Manhattan to their liking. And this map is more forgiving and provides more opportunity to score with bonus cards. First in this map, you'll see a Grand Central spot. You're going to find the big hub and place it right there. You'll also notice at the bottom of the board, there's spots for the different types of stations, like factories, warehouses, labs, offices, stores, embassy, and studios. You'll also see one passenger of that color type in there as well. And so naturally, you'll place the stations and the corresponding passenger on those as shown. All remaining robots, which remember are copper, gold, and silver, go into this bag and then you'll give it a good shake. On the game board, you'll see different areas, and each of these have a certain amount of random robots that you'll draw from the bag. And they are all over, and it will show you like this one needs 2, where this one needs 4, for example. And so for each of those, you'll randomly take them up from the bag, as many as shown, and just place them right on the spot. And you'll do that for all of those depicted spots on the board. Next, you're going to take all of the other commuters, and you're going to place them next to their corresponding stations. The object of the game is to have the most points, and there's many ways to get points. Over the course of the game, you'll be picking up and dropping off different commuters, and they'll get you points. You'll also get points for linking different stations together with your track. And you'll also be getting points from bonus cards, like having coral commuters on your player board, or having a direct connection between specific stations, or having curved tracks over a river. Now you're only able to score one of these by default, but you could unlock being able to score more than one as the game goes on. The game is played in clockwise manner, with each player taking successive turns. On your first turn, you're going to place your train in the hub. Then you're going to place the robots on your board that you started with. Remember, everyone started with 1 gold, 1 copper, and 1 silver robot. Now the fourth player, if there is one, that player actually got an extra robot to place as well. Now if it's your first time playing, and your players 1, 2, or 3 in turn order, we recommend placing your silver robot under the track, level 2, right there, your copper robot in capacity, level 2, and your gold robot into build station. Notice that some of these, like this, can only be used with a certain type. This is gold, only a gold robot can go here. Now the leftmost side, which is the level 2 action, can be placed with any color. Notice that there's sort of a rainbow there. And we'll go over a little bit later why it's important as to which robot goes where. Now, if you're playing a 4-player game and you're the 4th player and it's your first time playing, we recommend placing one of your robots in the level 2 for track, one of them in your build station, gold one here, and then placing 2 in either the pink or the lilac column. We're going to talk about what these do later, so either 2 of them here or 2 of them here. Again, we're going to talk about what this means later. So us being the first player, we placed our train on the hub, we set up our robots, and then we're going to take our actions, and then it will go successively throughout turn order. On your turn by default, you're going to get 2 actions, and this is reminded up here, actions 1 and 2. Now the actions that you can take are all in this middle column of your player board, and we're going to go through each of these. For example, track. Now with each action, you're able to take a certain power. By default, for example, if we were taking move, you would have a power of 1. But in track, because we placed the silver robot here during setup and during our first turn here, we actually have now a power of 2 because there's a robot here. If there was another one, then we would have a power of 3, for example. So let's first talk about the track action. When taking the track action, you can use it to build or remove tracks. Let's first talk about building a track. For each power, you can build 1 tile. Now at the beginning of the game, you're going to be on the hub, so you could go from any spot outside of the hub, but you cannot use or ever put track in Central Park. So for example, I could take this and place it just like that. Now that's a power of 1. If we only had a power of 1, that's all we could lay for a single action, and we could have taken a second action, which would have been a last action for the turn, to do another power 1 of track. However, we actually had power 2 of track, so for 1 action, we could lay 2 tiles. So this could be 1 action just like this. However, maybe instead we wanted to come down here. Anytime you build track on a hex that has a river, whether or not the track actually crosses the river, it counts as 2 actions to place 1 tile. So I could only place this if I had at least a power of 2 on the track, which we happen to have. So this 1 tile, because it went on a hex where there is a river, costs us a power of 2 just to lay 1 tile. Now when building track, only one of your tiles can be on each hex. However, any amount of players can also be on the same hex. And thanks to these cool clear tiles, it's all designed so that all 4 tracks from all 4 players can be on the same hex, and you can always see the lines of each of the players. Notice with your tiles, you have two curved types of tiles, and they essentially do the same thing, meaning they bring you from one section of the hex to another section of the hex. So they're the same. And for that reason, you can swap out one of your curves for another one to ensure that your tracks line up properly. And we talked about building track, but removing track is you do the same thing. Instead of building, you remove it up to the power of your action. And you do this because these track tiles are finite, and at some point you might run out and you might need to remove track in order to build somewhere else. And notice that it's quite all right to link to an empty station here like Queen's Plaza, because that's how we're going to show you the next action, which is building a station. Now notice on your board, build station, there's only a level 1, so you can only build one station for one action. Now when you build a station at the beginning of the game, the only stations that can be built are the 3 that house the robots, the factory, the warehouse, or the lab. So let's say we selected the warehouse. You would immediately get to take this robot and you'll place it on your player board just like you did with the starting robots. And then we'll place this here and we'll pick up these 2 passengers here and we will place it right on the warehouse just like that. Now remember, we just got this gold robot for placing that gold warehouse, so we get to place it immediately on our board, and there's certain spots that will accept a gold robot right away. There's also some over in this units per action, as I showed you earlier, help you sort of build and run your engine, if you will. Now remember, the slot for 2 always is sort of a rainbow, meaning any robot can go there. So we could put this in that level 2 spot on any of these, or we could push it in and push one of these other robots showing in the direction of the arrow. Now look at this. This is a copper and this is also a rainbow, meaning any robot can be here. So we could slide this here and in here because any robots could be here. And now we're at a level 3 of capacity. Or maybe we want to put it here and be able to pick up some. Now there's different ways of doing this, and there's actually ways to rearrange or adjust this that we'll show you later. When building your track through a station, you can only have 2 connections, one in and one out of any station. So now that this station here has a connection here and a connection here, you can no longer build another connection like out here or through this way. However, you are able to have more than one connection out of the hub, remembering you can never go through Central Park. Also, when building track, you can never build through an empty spot that doesn't yet have a station built. Now remember, on your turn, you're only taking 2 actions by default, and this being the next player's turn, but I'm going to go over all the different actions here. So let's say first turn's over, everyone's taken their first turn, and now it's our second turn. What do we want to do? Well, we built this track, and we built the station here, and so we want to go there and try to pick up some of these robots. And the orange player built a track and moved there, but they weren't able to pick it up because they already took their 2 actions. Now to move, you can go from where you are through your line, connecting to another station. No matter how many track lengths are there, as long as it's from where you are at to the next station and your track is the whole way, it just costs 1 movement action. So for 1 movement action, we could go here. And likewise, if it was the blue player's turn, for 1 power of move, they could go from here all the way to here because they have track and it's just going to the next station. Now there's 2 robots here. We'd love to pick them both up so the orange player can't get them. Now the cool thing is we've built our engine so that we have a pickup of level 2, which means we can pick up 2 passengers, but we would need a capacity of 2, which we have because we have a robot here. So we could pick up 2 and we could actually hold 2. If this was not here, we could pick up 2, but we really can't hold them, so this is really doing us no good. Likewise, if we had capacity of 2, we could pick up 1, but that's a full action. It would actually take us 2 separate level 1 actions, pick up and pick up, to fill us up to our capacity of 2. So it's really good to try to work some synergies and efficiencies with your engine. So we moved for our first action. For our second action, let's pick up. So we would simply take these robots and we would place them right in our train. It can actually hold 4 of them because that's the maximum you can hold if your engine is built all the way up. But let's pretend we just started our turn and we're here, we're at the end of our line. When you're at the end of your line and you move, you're then going to turn around and you're going to move back in that direction. In this case, to the hub. So for 1 movement action, with a level of 1 power, we can get all the way back to the hub. Now, we have a couple of passengers here. Now let's talk about dropping off passengers. Now dropping off passengers is an action. You can do a power of 1, meaning you could drop 1 passenger off for 1 action. But if you had your engine built up, you could possibly drop off 2, 3, or 4 of them all with 1 action if you have that built up enough. Now let's look at this. We're on the hub, and notice it has all 3 robot colors throughout the entire hub, which means you could drop off any 3 of those robots there. Now, if we wanted to drop this silver robot off at a factory, which is the silver station, we could do that because the silver factory matches the color of the silver robot. We could not drop off the copper robot at a silver factory or at the gold warehouse. You always have to drop the robots off where they want to be dropped off, which is the color of the station that they are, or you can always drop any of the 3 robot colors here as depicted on the hub. So let's say we move through our first action and we're going to drop off, but we only have a power of 1, so we decide to drop off this silver robot here. And we now place that in any silver spot on our board. Now let's say we place it here. Here it shows you extra actions. Now let's say over the course of the game we were able to fill this in. If it's filled in, you get a single extra action. If you're able to fill in all 3 of these rows, you'd have 3 extra actions plus the 2 normal for a total of 5. So if this was the case, not only would we have our first 2 actions, we would have a 3rd action every turn as long as these robots are here. We'll talk about moving these around in just a moment. Now let's say we were sitting at this station, but so is this train, and they have a robot in there. Now we want to get some more robots out here because we want to be able to pick them up without having to move. That's when you would take the refill action. Again, by default, you always have a power of 1, but you could build this up as well. What this means, for each power you have as refill, you're going to draw a passenger from the bag. Now, at any time during the game, you can look in this bag and actually count how many passengers are there of any specific color that you're looking for. However, before you pull through the bag, you can never look at it when you're pulling. You must sort of shake it up and shuffle it up and get a random passenger from there. In this case, we only have a power of 1, so we'd pull it out and we'd put it right on that specific station. However, when refilling a station, if you draw a passenger that's the same color of the station, meaning this is where they want to be dropped off, you put it aside for a moment and redraw a new one. And you keep doing this until you get a robot or another passenger that we'll talk about later that doesn't match that. Once you have finished your refill action, you take any passengers that have been placed aside and you put them back in the bag. Now let's talk about reversing your train. Now if we're facing in this direction because we came from the hub, if we were to move right now, we would be forced to move in this direction. 1 movement power would move us to here. Now, we are at the end of our line, so if we were to move again, we would automatically move, turn around like that, and then we would exactly go back like this. However, let's say we were like this and we didn't want to do that. Maybe that wasn't part of our strategy. Maybe we wanted to go back this way. On your board, there's a reverse train action. It needs a copper robot, but if there is one there for an action, you can just reverse your train. And so for that single reverse action, we would just simply reverse the train. However, when reversing, you can't do it in the middle of a move action. Now let's say we're sitting here and there are 2 passengers here and we want to pick them both up. Now we could pick up both robots because we have a level of 2 of pickup, but we only have capacity of 1, so we can only hold 1. But we don't need a reverse train anymore right now, right? So we could, for an action, we could adjust. We have a level 1 adjust, which means we could take 1 robot and move it to another spot that's legally it could be placed in. So let's place this. This is a wild robot. We could place this right here. So 1 action, we adjusted. And our second action, we're going to pick up because now we can pick up 2 and we can hold 2. And so now we've picked them both up, and probably right before they were about to pick at least one of those up. So let's say we got these robots to the hub and we were able to drop them both off. Now here you'll see unlock passengers and build stations. Now here we just dropped off a copper and a silver. And let's say we put them like this. Now remember, these robots could be adjusted from somewhere else on our board to here as well, because the 3 robot colors can be moved freely on our board with those adjust actions. Now when we unlock this, it is going to unlock passengers and allow us to build stations of this type of commuter passenger, which are very different from the robot passengers. So in this case, it's the pink professionals. So now that I've unlocked the pink professionals, let's say I'm at the hub and I've built some track, I can build the office there. And only a player that's unlocked them as shown before is able to do this. Now to do this, we would build one of these. This would go right on our board as normal. We would place this, and the first time any station is built of a certain commuter type, all of the extra commuters go in the bag, which are going to be mixed from the robots that were there at the beginning of the game. Now remember, we just got this for placing and building that station, and we'll look on our board. There's different places that you could put these commuters. Like we could build up starting here to try to work towards another extra action. We could place it here, hoping that we get a silver robot. Then we'd be able to unlock the coral type of passengers. Now, why do we want these? Well, they're very different from robots for a few reasons. Number one, once they're placed, they can never be moved. And shown here, when you adjust, you can only adjust those 3 robot colors. You can never move these once they're on your board, so you gotta figure out where to place them. But let's say we didn't place it here. Let's say we placed it up here. Now this does a few different things. Earlier in this video, I told you that you're gonna be getting points for dropping off certain commuter passengers. By default, each pink or lilac are each worth a point apiece, no matter where they are on your board. And the coral and purple are gonna be worth 2 points for every one that's on your board. And these ones are worth more because you actually have to use one of these types of commuters in order to unlock and be able to pick them up. Now keep in mind, only players that have this type of commuter unlocked can build a station or pick up that type of commuter. So if this orange player decided to refill and out of the bag came a pink commuter, they can't pick them up unless they have that unlocked. And just like the robot passengers, if you pull a commuter that matches the station type that you're on, it gets put to the side, you redraw, and then those go back in the bag after you're done redrawing. Now these are the default points for each of those commuters anywhere on your board, but if you're able to fill in a certain column, for example the pink column, if you had 2 more of them here, well then at the end of the game, instead of each of them being worth just 1 point, they're worth an additional point, so they're worth 2 points apiece no matter where they are on your board if you finish this column. And same for all of the other types of special passengers there, the commuters. There's another thing you could do with the commuters. If you fill in any one of these rows, every link that you have at the end of the game is going to be worth an additional point. For example, the green player has a link that goes from the hub to here. That's a point. From here to here. That's a point. You do that for every link, but by having one of these rows completely filled in, they're worth an additional point. Imagine if you filled in all 3 of these rows, which would be really hard to do. Each of those are going to be worth 3 additional points, or 4 total. Now the last thing you could do with the commuters are unlock more bonus cards. Now you'll see here these are all rainbow, which means they can take any type of commuter, it doesn't matter which one is where. So if we filled this in, we would be able to unlock another bonus card. Like this one at the beginning of the game, you could do one of your choice by default at the beginning, so 2 points for every coral commuter. But maybe I had another one that I wanted to unlock. Maybe I had this one, 3 points for each curved tile on a river hex. Well, remember we did this for a reason because we had that goal, and this allows us to unlock the second card because you always do one by default, and you could unlock more and more possible bonus cards depending on how many of these rows you fill up with those commuters. Now important that all bonus cards always max out of 15 points regardless of how many you might have gotten from it. Now this will continue with players taking turns in clockwise order until at least one of each of the commuter type of stations have been built, which means all of the passengers of those types are in the bag, and at the end of a player's turn, the bag is empty. At that point, you would finish the current round, meaning the player sitting just to the right of the start player will always get the last turn in the game, and then the game ends. And then everyone is going to score as shown in the scoring pad to the right. For the first 4 rows, you're going to be scoring the different passenger types as talked about previously, different amount of points depending on the commuter, and then you'll get additional points if you filled out those columns as I previously mentioned. You're also going to get a point for each of the links. For example, the green player has 1, 2, for example, just right there. You'd add all those up. Now by default, those are all worth a point apiece unless you're able to fill out one of these rows completely with the different commuters. Again, each row that you completely filled out is an additional point for every link. Then you're going to score your bonus cards, which are all self-explanatory on the cards. Remember, only 1 bonus card by default is scored. For every row that you've completely filled up with commuters, you can unlock and score an additional bonus card. All bonus cards have a max of 15 bonus points. Whoever has the most points is the winner. And if there's a tied, the tied player with the fewest robots on their player board wins. And if that's still a tie, they all play another game of Maglev Metro. Now here's a couple of additional rules with the hub. When you're here, you don't have to take a reverse train action to go in a different direction. When you're here, you can go off of your track in any direction that you have one. Also, when taking the refill action at the hub, if you draw any robots, like these 2, they get put off to the side and you redraw them because only commuter types can stay and be here after the refill action ends. Now, after you've played this before, you can add the red cards into the gold cards that you take at the beginning of the game. And if you're really feeling up to the challenge, you can do an advanced game, which is drafting these cards. Now, each player will take one stack of each of these cards. They'll secretly select one and pass the rest of them to the player clockwise. Now, for a 2-player game, each player takes 2 colors. For 3-player games, the third player in turn order takes 2 colors. Everyone end up with 1 card of each type of bonus card. Now I'm going to show you how to set up and what's different about the Berlin map. Now, gamers who like more strategy and thinking ahead several turns might prefer this map. Getting stations, passengers, and your train in the perfect location is challenging, but a flawlessly executed plan is particularly satisfying here. Keep in mind you always do player setup before choosing a map. So earlier in this video when I showed you how to do the player setup, you do that same thing before you chose this Berlin map. To set up, you'll place the board together as a puzzle like you saw with Manhattan. This is just the back side of that very same board. Now bring your attention to about where the middle of the board is, where I'm zoomed in, and you'll see these 3 empty stations. You'll take 1 lab, 1 warehouse, and 1 factory and randomly place it on each of those 3 spots. As you see here, I just randomly figured out which one went where. If you're playing a 2-player game, you'll place 2 robots on each of these. And the 2 that you place there, easy way to remember, is it's basically the 2 other colors that aren't the color of that station. For example, the lab is copper, so we don't put a copper robot, we put a gold and a silver. In the gold warehouse, we don't put a gold robot, we put a copper and a silver. In the silver factory, we don't put a silver robot, we put a copper and gold. If you're playing with 3 players on the copper colored lab, you're going to place 2 gold robots and 1 silver robot. In the gold warehouse, you're going to place 2 copper robots and 1 silver robot. And in the silver factory, you're going to place 1 copper robot and 2 gold robots. Now, if you're playing with 4 players, in each of the 3 starting stations, you're going to place 2 robots of the color that's not made up of that station. For example, with the copper lab, there'll be no copper robots, but there'll be 2 of the gold and 2 of the silver. In the gold warehouse, there's no gold robots, but 2 copper and 2 silver robots. In the silver factory, there's no silver robots, just 2 copper and 2 gold. In the bottom left hand of the board, you'll see empty spots as placeholders as what to place there, like a silver factory and a silver robot, a gold warehouse and a gold robot, a copper lab, and the copper robot. So naturally, you'll place those corresponding stations and robots as shown. Next, you'll place all the rest of the copper, gold, and silver robots and place them in the bag and give them a good shake. Now throughout the board, you'll see empty stations where stations will be placed later on. But right now, you'll notice that there's a certain amount of multicolored robots there. That means you'll randomly place a certain amount of robots from the robots we just placed in the bag on here. So this one will get 2, this one will get 2, and this one will get 1 randomly from the bag. So it will now look something like this. You'll do this for all of the empty stations on the board. At the bottom of the board, you'll see empty spots for the stations for the commuter passengers. And again, you'll see a station and a single passenger of that color. So you'll fill these up according to that. And so now it might look something like this. Then you'll line up all the other commuter passengers next to their corresponding stations. On your first turn, you're going to take your train and place it on any one of the 3 starting stations, and then you're going to take any one of those robots and place it next to your player board. Don't do anything with that robot yet. So after the first round of the 4-player game, it might look like this. Notice that players can share starting stations. Then at the beginning of your second turn, you're going to place the robots onto your board, meaning the 3 that you always start with, 1 of each of the color, and the 1 that you just took in turn 1. You're going to place all of these on your board just as I showed you in the Manhattan side of the map. If it's your first time playing the Berlin map, we suggest you put 1 robot in the 2nd level of track, 1 in the 2nd level of capacity, and 1 in the build station, then take your other robot and place it as you wish. For example, I placed the one I had just picked up in turn 1 right there in the 2nd level of move. Now, if you're playing on a 4-player game and it's your first time playing Berlin, and you are that 4th player, we recommend you place 1 of your robots in the track level 2 and the build station, and then we recommend putting 2 robots either in the pink or lilac column, and then place the last one as you wish, like I did right there. And now you're ready to play in Berlin, and notice there's no hub in the Berlin map like there was in Manhattan, so it's a little more difficult to drop off the robots. You actually have to go to their specific stations to do so. You can't do it at sort of a wild hub. Now, to set up the solo game rules, you're going to remove 3 passengers of each type, meaning all 3 robot types and all 4 commuter types. Next, randomly take 2 of the gray direct connection bonus cards and place them off to the side of the map face up like this. If you're playing the Berlin map solo, when you randomly set up the 3 stations, make sure that you place 2 robots and using the colors that aren't part of that station. Again, for example, if it's a copper lab, you don't place copper, you place a gold and a silver. If it's a gold warehouse, you don't place a gold robot, you place a copper and a silver. And if it's a silver factory, you don't place a silver robot, you place a copper and a gold. Don't forget, your first turn in Berlin is placing your train and taking one of the 2 robots and placing it next to your board, and turn 2 at the beginning of that, you're placing all of the robots that you started with and the one that you just took. Now during gameplay, before each turn, including your first turn, you're going to draw 1 passenger from the bag randomly and place it right next to the map, which is going to be right near those cards that you drew as well at the beginning of the game. Now these passengers will not be used until final scoring, and you cannot connect directly stations shown on these 2 cards. Now the game will end as soon as you cannot draw a passenger from the bag before your turn, and it ends immediately. On the back of the normal score sheet, you'll find a single player score sheet and you'll score as normal. However, there is a row that says minus turns. Now remember, you're pulling out a robot at the beginning of each of your turns and putting it off to the side of the map. You'll count however many there are there, and you'll lose a point for each of those. And then on the bottom of page 15 in the rulebook has a scoring tabulation that shows you what your rating is based on the map and what your final score is. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into Maglev Metro faster than you normally would if you had to read the rulebook yourself. Now, if you have further questions about the rules, I've placed a link below me right in the description of this video. Now, that's the best place to ask them since I'll be notified, but so will Bezier Games.